Hello and what is going on everyone? So a lot of you guys did not have the steep requirements for our last AFK Gregorovic guide, so I've decided to make an updated melee AFK guide which can net you between 41 and 44 kills an hour AFK when done optimally. This is great for anyone going for the pet, trying to complete the log, or just trying to make some easy money. If you guys have been following my Stacked from Scratch series, I've also been doing a suboptimal method with worse gear, and I'm able to achieve between 39 and 42 kills an hour, so in this video I'll be including everything I do for that as well. Before we go any further, it's important that we give credit where credit is due. All the brain power that went behind crafting the method and rotation goes to Frank, also known as Frank's Mad in RuneScape and Friggity Frank on Discord. If you want to read the full written guide with everything that you need, it can be found in the PVME Discord, which I'd recommend anyone joining who's looking to improve at PVM. There are guides showing optimal rotations and tips for every boss, PVM tips and rotations, and even upgrade guides. So if you haven't already, join the PVME Discord using the link in the description down below. Let's take a look at the requirements that are recommended for this method. This is a combat method where you're going to be AFKing a mid-tier boss, which has KO potential because he can hit very hard with his standard attacks. So yes, you are going to need decent combat stats, overloads and curses unlocked. This is pretty much a staple in 2021. If you don't have these unlocked on your account yet, these should be your goals to achieve before doing this method. At a minimum, you want 95 prayer so that you have access to turmoil and soul split. The tier 99 prayer will increase your kills per hour, but it is not a hard requirement for this method. The reason I'd recommend getting 95 and not just leaving it at 92, you need as much accuracy and damage as you can get in order to sustain your health from doing this. So you want to make sure you have turmoil unlocked. 73 summoning and ancient summoning unlocked from archaeology is a must-have, and it is what makes this method vastly better than the other AFK guides on this boss out there, as it gives you access to the Blood Reaver familiar, which we will cover later, but just in short, it will increase your overall amount of damage per hour insanely. 90 plus combat stats are recommended, but in all honesty, you can easily gain over 1 million combat experience an hour in this game, so asking for max combat stats is not a big ask, and is pretty much mandatory for most of the content in-game, so make sure you get your stats up as high as you physically can before doing this method. Finally, 96 plus Herblore is required as we're going to be using a Lanakea's Spear, which has tier 75 accuracy. I would not recommend going below Supreme Overloads, and because of how useful they are, do not hesitate to get the level to boost and make Elder Overload potions. They are best in slot and will increase your DPS, accuracy and defense everywhere in game. High level players do not tell you this for the fun of it. These are one of the best items that you should get in your grind when playing RuneScape 3. Now the requirements are covered, let's take a look at the preset. You want your best Overload potions. If you do not have Overload salves, you will need to bring equal amounts of super prayer renewal potions as well. Weapon poison +++ is a must-have, as this method depends on manipulating the high amount of poison damage you can deal with a combination of items, so make sure you have at least one 6-dose flask of this to last you the full hour. To boost this poison damage, you'll want to have 11 Qualm incense sticks to last a full hour, making sure that you max out the potency of them. Lanternarm incense sticks can also be used to extend your overload and weapon poison timers, making this even more AFK. And if you do not have the Venom-Blood perk on your gear, it is crucial to have Eerie Incense Sticks to mitigate the poison damage that you take from Gregorovic. You'll want to bring a Blood Reaver familiar, which will passively deal damage based on the amount that you heal. This stacks with a variety of healing methods, for example a Vampirism Scrimshaw, Vampirism Aura and Soul Split, and can result in some insane damage, as for every hit this familiar does, it will deal bonus damage and also have a chance to proc poison damage, which is what makes this method so fast. An Excalibur and Ancient Elven Ritual Shard can be used to replenish health and prayer points every 5 minutes, so if you have these, make sure you bring them. For the most part, you do not need food for this method, but at any time, Gregorovic can KO you. So if you have all one toolkit, you can actually put on a AFK timer, which will alert you when your hit points is below like 10%. Do not be concerned when your hit points is around 20 to 30%, because that just happens with this method. You normally out heal it. I don't bring any food personally because he drops a ton of sharks. But trust me, literally from about 15 hours of doing this, you barely need to eat. There is an occasional risk of dying. There are ways that we can reduce this risk though, which we'll cover in the method later on. Potion reservoirs are great to increase how AFK this method is, as you can use them to automatically drink your overload salves. If you don't have salves, it's kind of pointless because you still need to drink the prayer renewals as well. So I'd only really recommend using these if you have overload salves. Armor spikes are also a must-have, and you can get these from smithing. I'd recommend reinforcing these into the alloy variant because they can deal even more damage, and they are relatively cheap to make. The reason these are important is because the damage that they deal can actually heal you using your Soul Split Vampirism and Vampirism Scrimshaw, and you can also proc poison damage onto the boss from the armor spikes proccing. Finally, if you're using a tier 95 prayer, you will need 8 super restores, and if you're using a tier 99 prayer, you will need 10. So kit out your inventory depending on which prayer you're opting to use. That is the inventory sorted, so now let's take a look at the armor and weapon setup I'd recommend for this. Firstly, before anyone says it, why not use a trimmed masterwork spear? In short, the difference is negligible, and the Laniakea spear is a tenth of the price and doesn't need lunging 4 on it. You will achieve roughly the same amount of kills per hour with both, and this is by far the more accessible option for most players. If you did want to look at the Masterwork Spear variant of this method, in the PVME, Frank also has a guide for that, so feel free to check that out if you don't want to invest the money or time into getting yourself a Laniakea Spear. So, as mentioned, you'll want a Laniakea Spear as you're able to maintain between 96 and 99% accuracy on Gregorovic depending on your loadout. And the additional chance to deal poison damage paired with the boosted damage offered by the Spear offers insane utility when paired with a Blood Reaver familiar. Cinderbane gloves are also a must-have for this method as they provide significant bonuses to your weapon poison damage, so these are required for this setup. They are also amazing gloves for every style in the game, so they are a must-have across the board. Regular Masterwork is what I have personally been using for my series, and it works fine and is relatively cheap to upkeep. However, if you have it, Trimmed Masterwork can be used to lower the risk and also open up doors to allow you to use a Penance Aura with the method, which we will mention later on in the video. In terms of ring slot, the choice is up to you. I personally use a Luck of the Dwarves to free up a relic slot. However, Ring of Death or Asylum Surgeon rings both work fine when doing this. For your necklace, the best in slot is going to be an Essence of Finality, which you can store a Saradomin God Sword inside for emergencies. I personally do not do this when testing, and it was not necessary. The main benefit of this amulet is to heal more from your soul split and also have higher accuracy from the Reaper stacks, which give you a 3% increased hit chance, which is amazing when using the Laniakea Spear. I personally have done this method using a Blood Amulet of Fury and an Amulet of Souls on my Stacked from Scratch series and confirmed both of these work fine. Finally, a Vampirism Scrimshaw is mandatory for this method and is why this is inferior to the range method on the channel, as it has a higher upkeep cost in order to use. This will cost you just over 2 million GP an hour to use, but do not let this put you off because you're still going to be making a ton of AFK profit, and it's going to be every other AFK moneymaker that is out there. Capsarius, Spiritual Mages, Spiritual Warriors, all of them go out the window when doing this method, even with the upfront cost of Vampirism Scrimshaws. As a side note, the superior Vampirism Scrimshaw is not needed for this method, but if you have them, it will make it overall a whole lot safer and allow you to use the Penance Aura as you're able to lift the healing cap of the Scrimshaw by a further 50 per hit, which makes it far superior than the regular Vampirism Scrimshaw. On screen now is the optimal perk setup for the method I'm going to be showing you. On your Laniakea Spear, you will want Precise 6 with Ruthless 1. This will increase your damage by 7.5%, plus Ruthless 1 can further boost your damage every time you kill the shadows. Aftershock 4 paired with Equilibrium 2 is also to boost your damage significantly here, as the Aftershock damage can actually proc further poison damage and also accounts for any of the AoE damage that you do on the shadows within the arena, allowing it to proc even more often. The Equilibrium 2 will also give you a nice 2.7% damage increase as well, so that's definitely worth having if you compare them together. Do not worry if you don't have these are simply best in slot. Precise 6 paired with Equilibrium 4 works wonders as well and can be obtained fairly cheaply. If you guys really did want to, you could have Lunging 4 and Equilibrium 2, however I feel like the difference would be pretty minuscule, and we aren't going to be prioritising a bleed setup as we're not using a Masterwork Spear. In terms of armor, an absolute must-have to save money due to the limited supply of Irrit Incense sticks causing the price to be ridiculously inflated is Venom Blood. You can pair this with Biting 4 or Biting 2 if you want to save a bit of money. That's personally what I've been using in my series. But because you do not need Enhanced Devoted 4 here, I'd recommend just getting an extra set of legs and putting Venom Blood on its own because you will have a free perk slot. I know a lot of you guys aren't going to be able to feasibly just purchase outright another set of Masterwork legs. However, after you've done a few hours of this and made enough money, I'd recommend doing so. It is very important in this game to have best in slot perks for specific content. But if you are someone that likes to do a lot of Araxor or any other bosses in the game where you need Venom Blood, just pair it with Biting and that will suffice. The final perks I'd recommend here, I'm not going to go too much in detail because we've covered them a ton on the channel. And if you did want to check out these in depth, check out our ranged AFK Greg guide and skip straight to the perk setup. But you're going to want Crackling 4 paired with Relentless 5, Impatient 4 and Biting 4. All of these are going to increase overall the amount of damage that you're able to deal, and they are must-haves on any armor setup in the game. As I said, I don't want to go further in depth in explaining all of these. We've done it so much on the channel. Just go check out the range guide if you want to have an elaborated explanation for these. On screen now are all of the useful items for doing this method. The various incense sticks have already been covered. Just know that qualms are mandatory to boost poison damage. If you want to AFK more, use Lantadime incense sticks. And if you do not have Venom Blood, you must use Eerie incense sticks. The most useful aura here is Vampirism, as it will boost your kills an hour, as your Weapon Poison and Blood Reaver will deal more damage. Also, this is the safest aura to use for the method. For those of you unaware, if you extend this aura using Viswax and do 2 hours of Gregorovic, you will earn 2000 Marks of War. You can then use the 2000 Marks of War to buy a tier 2 aura refresh from War at the PVM hub to reset your aura and do this method infinitely. Penance aura is nice as you can AFK more due to not needing super restores, but there is more KO potential as you will have less heals. And therefore, if you are using this aura, it is recommended to have Trim Masterwork and a Superior Scrimshaw. You're going to need as many heals as you can get, so these are must-haves when using the Penance aura. Personally, I'd stick to the Vampirism aura, as you will get more kills an hour and have a lot more survivability. In terms of relics, I'd personally run Death Ward to lower the damage taken, Berserker's Fury to increase your damage dealt up to 5.5% depending on your hit points, and finally Persistent Rage, which is mandatory for this method. On the PVME, Frank also has a guide for 0% adrenaline starts, where you do not need an Adrenaline Urn or Persistent Rage if you do not have the Archaeology level for the setup. So check that out. If you're missing Persistent Rage, you can still obtain a decent amount of kills an hour, so it's great for anyone out there that doesn't have the Archaeology level. Two more great relics are Fury of the Small to increase the amount of adrenaline gained from basics by 1. This will enable you to build to your thresholds even quicker, enabling you to do more damage. And Luck of the Dwarves so that you can camp a different ring. It's all personal preference really. As I said, I personally opt to run Persistent Rage, Berserker's Fury, and the Death Ward relic. Now we have 2 Revolution bars on screen. First up, we have a higher kill per hour method, which focuses more on AoE damage using the spear and its scythe range to sustain yourself from heals, and do overall more damage output focusing on abilities such as Quake and Hurricane. Quake is very important when using the spear, as it will actually give you an affinity boost when fighting your opponent, which due to the 75 tier of accuracy from the spear, this will enable you to actually have a higher hit chance. Using the higher kill per hour strategy, you will be able to get between 41 and 44 kills an hour, using the setup recommended in the video. Secondly, we have a safer ability bar, which is what I've personally been using with my suboptimal gear setup in our Stacked from Scratch series. This has a heavy focus on using the Debilitate ability to reduce some damage taken, and works great when using subpar gear, and can also be used if you find you're taking too much damage. This will get you between 39 and 42 kills an hour, so it's not going to be too much of a difference. However, I would recommend it to anyone out there. If you are having trouble with this method, try this bar instead. 9 times out of 10, when people find that they're struggling using these methods, they're missing something very crucial, very simple, or just something outright obvious. For example, not having the correct relic setup, not having the correct perks on your gear, not having high enough overloads. All of these things actually factor in when doing the method, and if you want to actually see very specifically what I use and would recommend using for a suboptimal setup, I'd recommend going and checking out our Stacked from Scratch series, where we were killing Gregorovic using what I'd like to call the minimum gear setup for this method, and you're still going to be making tons of money, as you can see in my video. Please don't be disheartened if you find that the method doesn't work. As I said, 9 times out of 10 there's an easy fix. It's just finding it. And most of the people that actually have come to me, they've spoke to me in my Discord, where me and Frank will be able to easily answer any questions that you guys have. So if you haven't already, join my Discord and feel free to start any conversation regarding any trouble that you're having with the method. We've actually covered most of the important information now, and just as a reference, let's take a look at the do's and don'ts for this setup. Set the timer to fastest and make sure your revolution bar is set up, your overloads are drank, renewals, weapon poison and incense sticks are all active, turn on your Scrimshaw and Vampirism aura, and then simply just AFK and kill Gregorovic, making sure you to replenish your prayer, overloads and weapon poison when they are close to dropping. Also make sure your Blood Reaver is summoned, as this is very important to actually doing damage to the boss, and it saves a ton of time each kill. This boss will do a lot of damage, but with the recommended setup and all of the things that I've listed in this video, you'll be able to completely out-heal it, and you will be praying Soul Split and Turmoil, as Soul Split is used to heal yourself and to deal bonus poison damage via the Blood Reaver. It's also very important to turn your run energy on for this method, as walking will simply make you take too much damage whenever you get unlucky with him teleporting around the arena. I know this is contradictory to a lot of the guides out there, but trust me, it doesn't matter if you're in melee range, you should be able to out-heal the damage regardless. If your prayer points or overloads drop, then you will die. The only times that I've died doing this method is literally when my prayer drops and I'm not getting enough heals, or my overload drops and I haven't got enough defense in order to mitigate the amount of damage that we're taking. So it's very important to make sure these are active at all times, and the same is true for your weapon poison. You want to make sure this is always active, as it will greatly increase the kill times. When using melee, you should be able to have your loot interface open at all times, pressing spacebar every kill to receive your loot, and that's pretty much it. It's ridiculously AFK. There's no rocket science behind this. Frank has done all of the work optimizing this rotation, and you can simply AFK to your heart's content. If this strategy does not work for you and you take too much damage, feel free to ask away and let me know your setup, and then we can try and find out what is missing. As always, you can use the safer ability bar to get less kills an hour, but it will overall be a lot more safer because you will be using debilitate to reduce the amount of damage that you take. For those of you curious why the kills per hour are so much higher using this method, the Cinderbane gloves, Blood Reaver, Weapon Poison, and Lanaka's Spear, alongside the Qualm Incense Sticks, all greatly increase the amount of weapon poison damage that you can deal. If you actually take a look at the Blood Reaver, every single time you get a heal from the Vampirism Aura, Scrimshaw, and Soul Split, every single time you get a single heal from each of them, it will do a hit splat on the opponent. Every one of them hit splats have a chance to proc poison damage, which can hit over 1,000 consistently. And if you look at the hit splats on the boss, the majority of your damage is going to be dealt from weapon poison. If you come in here with and without the Blood Reaver, you'll literally see like a 20-second difference in your kill times. Like, it's crazy how much more efficiency this provides when using all of these things paired together, and that is why the Lanaka's Spear is just as good, if not better, than the Masterwork Spear method. In terms of the revenue you can make from using this method, with the boosted drop rates, 40 kills an hour will net you 15 million GP an hour, and 44 kills is around 16.5 mil an hour. I do not cover the costs in my videos, as there are simply too many variables at play, and so many different items will simply make the cost not replicable to the majority of players. My setup may be slightly different to your setup. There's so many different things that will change the cost an hour. I like to just leave you guys with the information of the raw GP that you're going to be making an hour, and then you guys can factor in your own cost depending on your setup. At current prices, roughly you're going to be making between 12 million and 14 million GP an hour AFK using this method. As I said, this is inferior to the ranged method. The ranged method really is going to make you a ton more money because you don't need that Vampirism Scrimshaw. However, there is a greater startup cost. It's great for anyone out there going for the log or the pet, and I'd recommend it to anyone with a setup to go test this out for yourselves. Honestly, I've spent a ton of time here, and it's nice to actually do a boss AFK for once, opposed to sitting at Spiritual Warriors or Mages. So that is everything I have for you guys today. Thanks once again for Frank for theory crafting this and putting in a lot of time and man hours to actually come up with this method. Don't forget to check out the PVME and his guides in the description down below. Thank you all for watching. If you found it useful, like the video as always. And if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future guides and series we have in store. I've got so many money making guides and bossing guides, PVMing tips and fun series that I have planned, and they're going to be coming out over time. So if you enjoy that kind of stuff, subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you guys aboard. Thank you all for watching.